Kauffman Foundation seeded the development of the Global Entrepreneurship Network, GEN, in 2008 at the height of the Great Recession.
And so part of our mission was to tell the world that Silicon Valley didn't have a monopoly on entrepreneurship, but we also wanted to have everybody in the world understand that it is possible for them to do it. We needed to have a global ecosystem of individuals and organizations that believed in the power of entrepreneurship.
Also part of GEN's mission? To not engage in a country's geopolitical activity.
If we're going to be genuinely trusted by all nations, we mustn't judge the citizens of a country by whatever happens at the geopolitical level.
Focusing instead on celebrating entrepreneurship and, in some cases, overcoming cultural resistance to it.
We have an ecosystem of policymakers, and we work with them year in and year out, doing policy audits in terms of how they're trying to remove barriers to entrepreneurship. When we first did Global Entrepreneurship Week in many of these former Eastern Bloc countries, socialism had a culture whereby you weren't really supposed to do anything unless someone told you to do it. Community by community, we told them, don't wait, don't ask for permission. Go break something, it's okay.
Go break something caught on. GEN is now in over 200 countries with different programs that form one global entrepreneurial ecosystem.
The GEN ecosystem is diverse in a geographical sense. It's obviously diverse demographically. And then finally, it's diverse in terms of the types of organizations, universities, governments, accelerators, and investors are the people that ultimately are going to be putting the resources in the hands of entrepreneurs.
What GEN can do is connect the dots so that entrepreneurs and startups that have great ideas anywhere in the world can have the spotlight.
You end up with this wonderful blend of both expert verticals and then this ecosystem that's got the horizontal, which is all of these national communities.
At the heart of GEN and entrepreneurship is the calling to fulfill our true potential.
Entrepreneurship taps into this fundamental human desire to have some control over your destiny and to create something and to make a difference. And I think that cuts across countries and culture and gender and race.
We can only make change in technology, in the lab, but real change comes when we touch people's lives.
Entrepreneurship amplified exponentially would be great for humanity and for society because those are the solutions that will hopefully solve some of these pressing problems that we're facing today.
We have to be a steady drumbeat to remind people that entrepreneurship represents the possibility of human endeavor and that there is always the opportunity for anyone to be able to be part of that future. Welcome to the Global Entrepreneurship Congress. It's wonderful to see so many old and new friends, so many treasured partners, and so many young and old people. I'm particularly proud to say this is the first time I have my youngest son here to see what Dad does during the day. So thanks, Teddy, for coming today. I don't know where you are, but well, since we last met, on a more serious note, our world has been dramatically disrupted, most notably, I think, in three ways that I wanted to talk about today. I mean, I think first, while long predicted and discussed that AI and deep tech would disrupt everything, we did not expect this disruption to happen at quite such a breathtaking pace. I think the second thing is perhaps less well predicted, and that is the onset of a new era globally of governments disrupting themselves. Citizen expectations accelerated at breakneck speed, and public leaders are recognizing that the status quo is unsustainable. As we all witness, budgets are being completely rewritten, questioning priorities that were previously sacrosanct for generations, and the old machinery of governance built for a different era is having its own renaissance. I think the third disruption that is happening is one that relates to our global economic model. It was once seen as an anchor of stability around the world. We see a threat from an era of openness, a retreat, and of global integration that defined the last generation, now drowned out by the engines of deglobalization and nationalism. In short, countries are turning inward, supply chains getting fragmented, and the once seamless flow of talent, capital, and ideas now interrupted by new barriers. In fact, soon we will release data from our latest global startup ecosystem report that we publish, the Jen publishes with the startup genome team, that ecosystem value has already declined globally by a median of 25% among last year's top 40 ecosystems. But have faith. Disruption is not destruction. Given disruption is the alchemy that turns uncertainty into opportunity, surely this is a call to action for entrepreneurs. Why? Well, first, entrepreneurs are fearless, they're bold, they're actually super comfortable operating in this disruptive environment. They pursue new solutions and they thrive on uncertainty. And actually, when governments and societies shift the rules like they have done recently, entrepreneurs are the first to spot the cracks where the new opportunities emerge. Secondly, the reason why this is our time is because entrepreneurship is the great common denominator. And entrepreneurs are the new diplomats of our era. In such a fractious world, reaching across divides to solve problems together is, in my view, the calling of our time. Entrepreneurship and the conversations we have between our ecosystems have a very important role to play in softening these trends towards deglobalization and distrust by providing a common culture across national boundaries based on solving, building, creating, and sharing. So I believe this is a time of astounding possibility for us, the global entrepreneurial ecosystem. For centuries, diplomacy was the exclusive domain of statesmen and ambassadors, and in fact, their negotiations were usually cloaked in formality and in protocol. But today, that order is being profoundly reshaped. Entrepreneurs, as the new diplomats, are boldly leading the way in uncharted territories where established institutions may no longer be trusted. So, is this a problem? Is this too radical? I don't think so. In fact, as Thomas Jefferson wrote, I hold it that a little rebellion now and then is a good thing, and as necessary in the political world as storms in the physical. In the global entrepreneurship ecosystem of today, this spirit of constructive rebellion is not just healthy. In fact, I think it's essential, because just as the storms clear the air and renew the land, moments of disruption force us to re-examine old assumptions, break free from complacency, and push the boundaries of what is possible. Entrepreneurs are, at their core, the rebels of the economic world. They question the status quo, challenge outdated models, and refuse to accept that the way things have always been is the way they must remain. It is the willingness to disrupt, to occasionally stir up turbulence, that keeps our ecosystems vibrant and our societies progressing. Without these acts of creative rebellion, without founders willing to risk failure for the sake of a better solution, we would all stagnate. So disruption is indeed this spark that ignites progress. But it is bold leadership from the global community, rooted in vision, grit, and collaboration, that transforms that disruption from chaos into opportunity. So let's celebrate the rebels among us. Let us encourage the little rebellions that drive us to reimagine industries, to reinvent solutions, and renew our commitment to progress. For in entrepreneurship, as in democracy, it is the bold who change the world. We need to disrupt the very foundations also of our own work, not for the sake of chaos, but for the promise of renewal. And today I'm going to list 5 ways that Jen is proposing for the next few years that we are able to work on a more global ecosystem by 2035. Number 1, firstly, we must recognize the unique opportunity and responsibility ecosystems have to collaborate across borders to foster entrepreneurship globally. Yes, as I've mentioned, geopolitical storms are real and distrust is on the rise. However, the data is clear. Ecosystems that connect outperform those that isolate. And that's why Jen has made global collaboration a renewed cornerstone of our strategy, not just as a value, but as a deliberate and scalable practice. The centerpiece of this commitment has been the formation of national leadership councils in each nation around the world, connected through our Gen Connect platforms, programs, and events. And as referenced in our General Assembly working sessions today, Jen is connecting the connectors, creating a global leadership community, many of which are here today, that is stronger than the sum of its parts, more confident in its path, and more capable to lead on a world stage. These are our trusted collaborators who, while deeply embedded in their local contexts, share Jen's vision for 2035. By cultivating these relationships, we're creating a powerful network of new diplomats, a global infrastructure that enables the rapid deployment and local adaptation of more impactful initiatives and programs. Second out of the 5, despite the promise and potential of entrepreneurship, too few people are making the leap from idea to action. Barriers such as fear of failure, lack of exposure, and systemic exclusion are still keeping talented individuals on the sidelines. The world simply needs more entrepreneurs. We need more people testing, experimenting, figuring out better ways of doing things, and we need them now more than ever. And so in a post-AI world marked by rapid disruption and opportunity, our Gen Global Assembly workshops today mapped out a bolder global campaign to inspire and empower millions to take the leap from idea to action. We want more people kicking the tires of entrepreneurship, considering that as a path for their future. We've come up today with new words, new narratives, and new ways to light the candle in more hearts and minds of our citizens. In fact, Global Entrepreneurship Week, Gen's founding flagship program, made possible 15 years ago by the Kauffman Foundation, exemplifies this mission. And I'd like to pay tribute, if I can, to Ewing Marion Kauffman, who is the philanthropist that has been the shining light, the mentor, the leader, the vision that we followed in creating this vision. Because each November, GW mobilizes more than 10 million participants through 40,000 events in over 200 countries and territories, opening doors for aspiring founders from every background and community. From rural villages to capitals, GW serves as a launchpad, connecting would-be entrepreneurs to mentors, resources, and a global network of support. Thirdly, the challenge I put before you is that over Gen's life, we've seen an explosion of entrepreneurial support organizations. Everything from accelerators to all sorts of different kinds of educational and ESO programs. But the hard truth is that for all the millions invested in these ESOs, the returns have too often failed to match the scale of our ambition or the urgency of our times. This is not criticism born of cynicism, but one of responsibility for our own field. As an industry, we cannot expect sustained investment in our global ecosystem programs without demanding better results. And in the Gen Village, you will see artwork shared today, this week, where we look at various models for ecosystem building that show that vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystems do not emerge by action. They require nurturing, investment, and the scaffolding of support. Yet too many ESOs have become complacent with activity in place of impact, with process in place of progress. The result? I regret I see a troubling gap in some parts of the world between resources poured into the measurable outcomes delivered for founders, communities, and economies at large. We see this in the proliferation of programs that promise much but deliver little, where funding cycles are spent on reports and events, while the entrepreneurs themselves struggle to access real mentorship capital and market opportunities. We see the rise of people seeking grants, seeking funding, who chase government grants rather than customers, and this is not just a matter of inefficiency, it's a risk to the credibility of our entire mission. Because every dollar that fails to move the needle is a dollar that could have empowered a founder, launched a new technology, or created a job where it is needed most. So we owe it to our entrepreneurs and to those who fund our work to demand more. And at GEN, we're determined to change this story. To that end, today, we have launched the GEN Catalyst Index, a groundbreaking program designed to assess ESO program performance with better rigor and transparency. GEN Catalyst empowers ecosystem actors to evaluate their programs against clear outcome-focused metrics, and this framework will indeed disrupt our industry, but it will deliver accountability, identify best practices, and drive efficiency across our ecosystem. Fourthly, the challenge I give to you to work with us on is that if we are to prepare the next generation of entrepreneurs to thrive in a world defined by this global complexity, we must fundamentally rethink how we deliver entrepreneurship education and training. Old paradigms are no longer sufficient. Today, GEN is leading in this charge with a pivotal shift in our approach. With the launch of GEN Academies, we're closing the chapter on the one-size-fits-all training and programs and opening a new era of targeted, dynamic, and scalable education. We're building a pipeline of talent that is diverse, resilient, and ready to meet the challenges of tomorrow. And I hope you will sign up for our AI Education Summit on Thursday morning, where we'll talk more about that. Finally, and our fifth challenge goes to all of our policymakers, many of which I was with this morning in our ministerial. To our policymakers, I say, look, if we are to truly honor the bold spirit that animates the world's entrepreneurs, we must first be willing to set our sights higher, to pursue a vision for entrepreneurship that is not only ambitious, but transformative. It's vital that we make sure that entrepreneurship is not the side ring at the circus. It must be central to our foreign policy. But the vision is not enough. The art of policymaking actually lies in the discipline of delivery. And you'll see many of the people that have come with our policymakers this week have been selected because they executed and implemented high-performing programs. Because too often policies are crafted in distant offices. They're disconnected from the realities of those they are meant to serve, and true progress is achieved when policymakers roll up their sleeves and work side by side with the entrepreneurs and with the ecosystem builders and citizens, iterating, learning, and adapting as they go. So not only must policymakers be bold in their vision, they have to be disciplined in this delivery and rigorous in the measurement. So let us build not just policies, but pathways that empower our dreamers, our doers, and the risk takers to change the world. And this has been the cornerstone of GEN's work in building our Startup Nations community, which is our policymaker community, and has been at the heart of our conversations at the Startup Nations Ministerial that took place today. We've developed a platform for government engagement and learning across borders, and we're actively advising policymakers around the world, sharing the world's largest compendium of entrepreneurship policy cases and studies through the GEN Atlas, which has been a feature of our GEN Global Assembly this morning. So as we get to work this week, let's remember those 5 challenges. But let's remember that entrepreneurship is no more, no less than the creative endeavor of mankind. It reflects the ambition of our times, measures our appetite for progress, and maps the outer bounds of our imagination. The future we envision, a thriving, inclusive, and resilient world, and a resilient global entrepreneurial ecosystem over the next 10 years will not be built, of course, by bold words or any speeches, but by the collective actions of each and every one of us working side by side. So starting this week, I invite you to roll up your sleeves and join us. Be bold, lead, collaborate, and go break something. Join our network. You should have all got this little pin here. This is a symbol of you're a member of the Global Entrepreneurship Network. Keep it, remember it, as a reminder of the vision that we have, that we can change the world together. And in the words of legendary baseball player Babe Ruth, never let the fear of striking out get in your way. Welcome to the Global Entrepreneurship family. I want to acknowledge, by the way, that none of the work that we do would be possible without our tremendous partners. And I'd like to call a special thank you to our founding partner, the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, and some of our other partners that are here with us today: Wells Fargo, Alibaba, FedEx, Mansha'at, the institution in Saudi Arabia, PayPal, DoorDash, GoDaddy, Etsy, Hello Alice, and Verizon. And all of the work that we've done and the impact that we've had over the course of the last year is available to you. We're launching now this impact report which is available to you on the app. If you go to the app, you can download a digital copy. For those of you that don't mind a little environmental shall I say, naughtiness, you can go to the Gen Village and we'll give you a printed copy if you're interested in a hard copy. But we're very, very proud of the fact that it demonstrates that we've been able to achieve together, with the incredible support of these partners, some exciting impact for the people that we look to serve. And it, as I say, it's accessible and available to you throughout this week. But above all else, I want to pay tribute to the people without whom this conference would not have been possible. There are so many individuals, and I'm told I can't list them all, but I do want to thank all the Hoosiers here who have worked tirelessly to make this happen and to welcome our community to Indiana. In particular, I want to thank our sponsors. All in Kosiako, Indiana University, Eli Lilly and Company, Meta, and our gold sponsors, Allied Research Institute, Generator, Google, Heartland Bioworks, Tech Hub, the University of Notre Dame, and Silicon Crossroads. And in fact, all of our sponsors and partners that are listed in your app and on this program. And I really want to encourage you, go visit the booths, look in the app, find the representatives, and thank them, because this has been the most extraordinary event, and I can promise you it wouldn't be what it was without their support, and it wouldn't be what it was without the extraordinarily warm Indiana welcome that we've had, and in fact, that you're about to have. I want to make a special call out, if I can, to the incredible team at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. David, Morgan, Christine, so many of them. They have literally worked tirelessly 7 days a week with our team to make this possible. So thank you so much indeed for all that they've done, and I hope that you will listen intently to the stories that they have to tell about Indiana. But now I want to introduce you to someone who really needs no introduction to this audience. He is our host today. He represents all the Hoosiers in this great state that have welcomed us to this remarkable city. Please join me in welcoming Governor Mike Braun. Great to be here. Thanks. And I'd like to also welcome, joining Governor Braun for a panel discussion, Patrick Johnson, the president of Lilly International. Jennifer Rumsey. Thank you so much. Great. Chair and CEO of Cummins Inc. We've got Jennifer coming. And Sonny Beck, CEO of Beck's Superior Hybrids. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks again for doing this. I think we're waiting for one more. Jen. The best for last. Thank you.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
So what a pleasure to be here as a leader of the state, a serial entrepreneur from the days many years ago when I had to make my own decision, as many here have, of what to do with the rest of your life. So I remember that switch from really uncertain for sure what I wanted to do when I got to college. I was a biology major and it was on a pre-med course until I found out it was going to be 9 years to actually be a specialist or maybe be a surgeon. That was too much further education. Switched to political science, was headed to law school, and then somewhere down deep, none of that seemed to really resonate. So I was actually headed to law school on a JD MBA, 4 years in, still the same now. Ended up going to business school for maybe the wrong reason. It was just 2 years of further education. I come from a very entrepreneurial community in the southern part of the state. It's one of the few rural counties, Du Bois County, county seat Jasper, built on the back of manufacturers that immigrated to this country from the Civil War to the start of the century, and they were furniture makers, and it was a big manufacturing town. And every business that we have there was started by someone within the community, and a lot of them became large national companies over the years. So here today, we got a slate of individuals that can share those same stories. You've had their introductions early. Sonny Beck, CEO of Beck's Hybrids. Patrick Johnson, president of Lilly International. Jennifer Rumsey, chair and CEO of Cummins. And Ivan Tornos, president and CEO of Zimmer Biomet. So each of these companies probably have similar stories where there was a founder that had an idea, and then for any enterprise to make it much beyond a couple or 3 generations is unusual. So we're going to start with each of you telling us how you got there, a little bit about your company's origin and the founder who got it in motion. We'll start here.
Thank you very much, Governor. Well, Eli Lilly and Company was founded back in 1876 by Mr. Eli Lilly. He was a pharmaceutical chemist, and he did fight in the Civil War. He was actually raised here in Indiana in Greencastle, was the oldest one of 11 kids. He started his first pharmacy back in 1860. But only for a year, then the Civil War started, and he was fighting in the Civil War for 4 years. After that, he did settle down with his wife in Mississippi, and together with a partner, he rented a plantation. But then he started to have some significant struggles. Business didn't go well. They were bankrupt. His business partner fled with what else was left. His wife passed away with their unborn child in malaria. And there he was, without a job, without a partner, and with a young son by his side. And he decided to do what he actually knew extremely well. He went back to pharmacy. He moved to Indianapolis with his son and worked almost for a decade across different pharmacies and druggists. And then one day, an Indiana wholesaler told him, you know what, Eli Lilly, if you start your own pharmacy, I'm committing to buy only from you. So that's how it started, May 10th, 1876, with Colonel Eli Lilly making a commitment to always develop medicines with the highest quality, based upon the most recent science, and only prescribed by pharmacists and medical doctors. And that commitment has lasted since then, and that's what we're going to celebrate next year, the 150 years anniversary of Eli Lilly founding our company here in Indiana.
Interesting story.
Good afternoon. It's very clear that Patrick has done a better job in researching the company than I have, going through all those dates. We are the quintessential American company, Zimmer Biomet is. We've been in Indiana for almost 100 years. And as I tell my colleagues, we're just getting started. Company started in 1927. Justin Zimmer, at the time, was working for another great American company, DePuy, another orthopedic company, today part of Johnson & Johnson. The reason why Justin Zimmer left Johnson & Johnson, or at the time DePuy, is because our founder believed in saying and doing things in a different way. Most people ask the why. He will ask the why not. Why not do things in a different way? And at the time, he had an idea. Can we do splints? These are not the current implants that we have today, with a different material. Instead of using wooden implants or wooden splints, can we get into aluminum? And as he pitched the idea to the DePuy brothers, they thought that he was crazy. And as we heard earlier today, it's about being bold in the opening remarks. And those who are bold enough, crazy enough, end up changing the world. And Justin Zimmer did change the world of orthopedics, starting in 1927 in a small but mighty town called Warsaw, Indiana. And here we are 100 years later. We're first to market with aluminum splints, first to market with modern implants, first to market in over 100 different product categories. We are today the world's largest purely dedicated orthopedic company, number one in hip replacement, knee replacement, fast-growing company in robotics, and today we're doing much more than orthopedics. But going back to our founder, he was an entrepreneur like most of you, and he was one that really cared about doing things in a different way. And 100 years later, we're not losing the purpose, we're not losing the legacy, and above everything, we're not losing the mentality of always thinking why not versus just the why.
Great. So Cummins' roots go back to 1919, Columbus, Indiana, really two key entrepreneurs that started the company. One, a local businessman, W.G. Miller, and his chauffeur, Clessie Cummins, who had the idea to innovate and advance diesel technology, which Cummins did not create, but through their partnership and work did make diesel technology and diesel engines the standard for trucking here in the U.S. And the company has since gone on to be a global power solutions provider and largest independent manufacturer of diesel engines. You know, Indiana is well known as a state for basketball. We're also home of the largest sporting event, greatest spectacle in racing, Indianapolis 500, which was just a week ago. And interestingly, Clessie Cummins was on the pit crew of the first winner of the Indianapolis 500, and Cummins went on to use the Indianapolis 500 as a place to test and demonstrate diesel technology. So over the years, we had several cars that were part of the race as a way to show the entrepreneurial spirit and innovation of Cummins. And so that's a really cool part of how Cummins' history and Indiana's history intersect.
I'm Sonny Beck, CEO of Beck Hybrids, and our family came over on the ship in 1833 and settled about 40 miles north of Indianapolis, a small town called Atlanta and Tipton in that area. Each of the children then, when they became married, inherited 80 acres of the original 160, and they had about 3 sections of ground, 640 acres each. And when he got married, he was the 7th of 8 children. There was only 40 acres left. And so didn't think he could make a living on 40 acres. So he sold that and moved down further south near Atlanta, Indiana, where we currently are on 276th Street out of Indianapolis. We're now known as being 276th Street. So, and he was always a bit of an entrepreneur in that he was the first to start trying to save seed and pick out the biggest ears and then save that in corn for the next planting. And they didn't ever get very far with that because the genes were all mixed up. And so it had to be, we get to single cross corn before we really started to make progress. So in 1901, he settled on this 80 acres and had to finish clearing off 40 of it so he could make a living. So he had 80 acres. And some people have often said to me, like, do you think your grandpa would be proud of you, you know? I said, well, I don't know, because he was a real farmer. And the fact that he cleared off 50 acres, and now I've covered that all up with 80 acres of buildings, he might not be too proud. So he and my dad were the start of basically Beck Hybrids. In 1937, when the university said they had this new thing, new way to do corn, give a 30% more increase in yield, called single cross corn. So they went to Purdue, got their 3 acres worth, because my dad had gone to short course there. And so that was the start, what we call Beck Hybrids. So that was my grandpa, first generation, my dad, the second generation, and myself, the third. I came back from school in the mid-60s, and basically that's what I wanted to do. You know, many of my professors at Purdue said, well, you know, you ought to just stay around here and teach or something. And I said, you know, I like that, but I'm just going to go back to farm and develop this seed business. And a couple of them jokingly said, well, good luck, because the big boys will eat you up someday. And my wife says, that's all you need. That's all he needed. So I've always been kind of, you know, wanting to think what's next. I call it, for myself, I drive around my pickup truck on the farm and where we have all the buildings and just dream about what could be and where do we want to go next. And we've never grown by more than about 15% a year, but we've had 60 years of 10 to 12% growth. And so we do not set goals like, oh, we're going to sell 1 million bags of corn, because then when you reach that, you give up. I've always challenged myself, I'm going to be 10% better at what I do every year. And my employees know that. They say, what's our goal? I said, it's our goal that you be 10% better in whatever you do. Don't think about the big number. Just make your job easier, make your job more profitable, and help your neighbors. And so with that, we've been very fortunate and God blessed with 60 years of 10 to 12% growth. And that remarkably, with the rule of 72, if you have 12% growth, your company doubles every 6 years, has allowed us to be the third largest seed corn company and soybean company in the United States at the present time. And we base here out of Indiana, but we sell in 19 other states. And the Indiana climate has been very good for entrepreneurs. Thank you.
So 4 very interesting stories, and in my case, I'm moderating and telling a few stories at the same time. Meyer Body Company was started in 1937 by a fellow named Leo Meyer. I really, when I got out of business school, moved back to my hometown, knew I probably wasn't going to be working at the kitchen cabinet manufacturer for a career, even though gracious offer. If you're a hometown boy with a good education, you stick around 15 to 20 years, you might run the place. Well, I was there 3 years. The company was 30 million then, it's now 3.5 billion. It was Aristocraft, later renamed, and then Master Brands, a division of Fortune Brands. Again, those decisions that you make along the way, 10 to 12% growth, the rule of 72 over 60 years. I mean, that's almost impossible to imagine. It's almost financially difficult to do. And mine was a little different story. This was a custom fabricator that never anteed up for assembly line production, was selling mostly to the farm market. And I get there in the spring of '81 when interest rates were a real bargain at 10%. It's when Paul Volcker had to squeeze inflation out of the economy. 6 months after I got there, that wobbly business was circling the drain. If you remember, mortgage rates just neared 20%. Took 5 years to get rid of that evil, to get back, to where you could rebuild. So it was 17 years of hardship, I would say, survival. And in keeping the business alive, I started a used truck and equipment business with a Harvard MBA. That didn't seem very like you were going anywhere. And I dabbled with a little milk run on truck accessories when there were 3 pickup trucks. Well, pickup trucks, sport utilities, out of necessity, adversity, jumped into a fast-moving stream. Any of you will know that success, once you start growing, is probably easier to derail than when you're just trying to survive. You got a lot of moving parts. You get too far ahead of your skis, especially if you don't understand finance, it can be a short career. So we grew the company for the 37 years I was there at 15 to 18%. And in the 6-7 years since, once you get into the rule of big numbers, it's hard to keep going like that. We did it all on reinvesting every penny, keeping our overhead low. Told my kids, operate your business kind of like you're going broke when you needed to operate it that frugally. You'll never get ahead of yourself there. And then the hardest thing, I'll end with this, is how do you continue a revenue stream? That is complicated. Every 3 to 5 years, markets change to some degree. You can easily get into a cul-de-sac if you're not constantly looking ahead to what that next act is going to be. So those are all our stories here. What to each of you, will go in the same order, has made Indiana a place that you appreciate to be domiciled here? And are there things you'd like to see us do better?
Well, thank you very much. I think we are extremely proud to call Indiana home. And of course, during almost 150 years, we have faced both headwind and tailwind. But I think in strong partnership with the community, with the Hoosiers, I think we have always been overcoming the biggest hurdle, and I think the company is thriving today. So we're extremely appreciative to the home of Indiana. I think what we need to continue to get better and better. And I think that was referred to several times during the first question. We need to continue to raise the bar. And I think there is nothing more important than wherever we are to really foster business and people-friendly communities that are leaning in on high-quality education, because that's going to be key. And for us to be able to fill our very technical jobs with people from Indiana and across the US and lean in very early on in terms of education, I think that's really the most important factor. And I think besides that, in order to thrive, you can't just create a good place to work, but also a good community to live. So I think all of those investments that are being made in sports, in theater, culture, and also how we are connected with the rest of the world. We want and need to make it easy to get to Indianapolis and to connect, and also easy for us to connect with the rest of the world. So I think we need to continue those efforts, but that's key.
All right, we're going to go from one Indiana accent to another Indiana accent here. We've been in the state for 100 years. I tell people, I was not born in Indiana, but I got here as quickly as I could. Why are we in worse Indiana? Well, look, hard reasons and softer reasons. The basics need to be in place. You got to have good government, which we do. You got to have good infrastructure, which we do. Access to technology, to education, logical policies across the board, which we do. I will put it in the bucket of the qualifiers, the hard ingredients that need to be part of the ecosystem. On the softer side of things, we at Zimmer Biomet are in the business of doing good for others. And you need people and culture to be in that business. And I tell you, I'm from Madrid, Spain. I've lived in 14 different countries. I travel around the world. It's hard to find people and culture like we find it in northeastern Indiana, in Kosciuszko County, Wards, Indiana. Good values, good communities. That is part of the ecosystem, and these days we don't talk enough about that. We talk about all the hardcore stuff, but really we talk about people and culture, and that's a huge differentiator. One of the main reasons why we continue to invest in Indiana, Northeast Indiana, is because of the people that we have in that community. Beyond that, we need to have a pro-business mindset when it comes to government, and we have that. Someone who understands what it is like to be an entrepreneur. They need to make decisions quickly. We have agile government. In other places, again, going back to 14 countries I live around the world, it's hard to put together capital investments in 2 years, and we do so in Indiana. It's hard to hire people at a rapid pace. It's hard to make decisions at the pace we make decisions here in Indiana. So when we talk about Indiana being bold, being agile, being proactive, it's not just a slogan, it's reality. It's easy to do business in Indiana, and that's why we're here.
It's great. You're going to start to hear some common themes here. Really want to echo the point of Indiana has been a place that is friendly to businesses and also a place that people want to come live and work. And so today, Cummins, of our 70,000 employees around the world, 10,000 of them are here in Indiana. We've continued to invest in our headquarter community in Columbus, Indiana, with technical centers, with plants, and we continue to invest. Today, we're increasing capacity in our Seymour engine plant for the large engines that we're making there. We just announced an expansion of our light-duty tech center in the Columbus, Indiana area. And we're also investing in our original engine plant to produce zero emissions technologies for commercial vehicles in Columbus, Indiana. So it continues to be a place that for us, access to infrastructure, access to talent, and access to the facilities to be able to create the products that we need for the future is really continuing to be a great place. And for me, I grew up in Columbus, Indiana. Unlike the two of you, I'm a born and bred Hoosier, educated here in the state. I went to the East Coast for graduate school and work, and I realized what a great place Indiana is to live. And in part, I grew up in Columbus, where like you, Cummins invested to make the community better. So part of it is the government, and part of it is companies and people giving back and really investing in making the communities better and making sure we have access to good education and places that people want to move, and we've been able to do that here in Indiana, and I know we're going to continue to do that here in Indiana.
One of the things that I learned early on was not to expand too fast beyond what you can actually do. And for us, that meant a 30-mile circle. We had to conquer that first, and then we could move to a 60-mile circle, and then a 90-mile circle. And often somebody from Iowa would call up and say, hey, my uncle uses your corn, and I want to buy some too. And I farm 1,000 acres, and I can buy a truckload of corn. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, I can't sell that to you. I won't sell it to you. Well, how come? Because I can't take care of it. In other words, we sell seed, which needs a plant doctor sometimes. That's called an agronomist. That's like a medical doctor for us, okay? So when you sell the seed, you need to be able to have somebody that's there to help them understand how you use this seed so that they don't have a failure. And so by expanding only 30 miles and then 60 and then 90 and then 120 miles, we basically could be pretty solid with a 30-40% market share in the area we're in before we moved on. And so that really has, I think, solidified the company and the loyalty of the people, our customers that are out there. And interesting that with that method, we have about 1,045 employees, and 400 of them are based out of Indiana and here in our local town of Atlanta. And how do we attract business from other states? Once I got out beyond a 3-hour drive, nobody would hop in a car and drive over to see us. Well, this is a wonderful, nice seed company, family-owned seed company, old 5th generation going. And no, I say, how would you like to hop in a corporate jet? I'll pick you up at 7. I'll have you home at 5. Like, sure, where are we going? We have a significant fleet of planes now that their main purpose is to go to states, Nebraska now, Kansas, that are several hours away, 12, 15 hours driving, and they will come and see us. And once they see us and see that we're a nice family-owned company, 5th generation going, and we have great seed, we take care of our customers, they will buy. And otherwise, we would not have access to those people because they would only see the salesman in that area. But once they come and see our research and see our what we call practical research, which is not developing new products, it is how you grow corn. You can use, it's free information. We do practical farm research for any farmer in the U.S. You go online, you can see our data. You don't have to use Beck's hybrids. And when we get to a state, they say, oh, I know you. I've been using your book for years. I've been learning how to farm and farm better by reading your free book that you put out every year. And so I think my point is, by growing a little bit at a time, we've been able to attract and bring lots of business back to our home state here, as well as have locations, 19 locations in those other states that are distribution points. But people know that they can come back in and look at everything we're doing here in Indiana.
Very good. Any company that grows over time has to be certain it keeps the entrepreneurial zeal in that organization. It's so easy for that to dissipate over time. And in the 37 years I ran my business, it was I was very instructive that you run it like a large little business. In other words, I wanted a lot of creativity. I wanted the folks that were running the main parts of the business to have a lot of latitude. First thing I did after getting elected governor was looked at our own organizational chart. 30 large agencies, another 30 smaller ones. It was not easy to get good ideas to rise to the surface, so organize it into 8 policy silos, created the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation within the Commerce Department. What have you folks done in your own businesses to make sure it stays agile, entrepreneurial, and promote young entrepreneurs within companies that can sometimes get bureaucratic?
But I think first and foremost, our business, we just need to reinvent ourselves regularly. If we don't, we are out of business. So we need to act as entrepreneurs every day and hopefully find the new modalities to treat currently unmet medical needs. I think that's in our DNA, otherwise we will not survive. In terms of how we drive that in the broader community, I think there are a few examples. Here in Indiana, we have several partnerships, one with the Ivy Tech Community College, where we have been committing $15 million to attract high school students and young college students to consider pharmaceutical manufacturing. That's extremely important for the state. And I think in partnership with Purdue, we have committed up to $250 million just to make sure that we are really enhancing the innovation ecosystem in Indiana. So I think those are a couple of examples. But most importantly, and several here in the audience are probably biotech entrepreneurs. And I think a few years ago, we announced the Lilly Gateway Labs, which is just a hub of innovation centers across the US and a few outside the US as well, where we are providing opportunities for small biotech firms to get access to state-of-the-art facilities, technologies, and scientists, and bring their ideas into the walls of Eli Lilly and Company, where we are providing them with the resources to succeed, and sometimes also funding. And until today, 6 years later, I think they have been generating more than 20 therapeutics and new platforms, been raising more than $1 billion in capital. So I think that's an area where we as a firm is quite well positioned to support those biotech companies to move forward.
It's a great question, Governor. So how do we stay agile 100 years in the business? I think it starts with the mindset, first and foremost. So I was also an entrepreneur. I started my own business 33 years ago. I never thought that I would be working at a Fortune 500 company. Sold that business 4 or 5 years later. The one thing you know, or the one thing you learn when you run your own company is that time and money matters. Much easier to make a living when somebody else is funding the paycheck. But when you're running your own business, time and money matters. And I will tell you 30 plus years later, that is the mindset that I have brought, that we are bringing to Zimmer Biomet. How to think about time and money each and every day, allocating that time and money to those solutions that matter, to those customers that deserve the absolute best innovation. Beyond the mindset, it really is 3 P's: people, processes, and partnerships and products. So we hire people that think in an agile way. We don't look for resumes of people that just come from large companies. Yes, we hire people from large companies, nothing wrong with that. But we personally gravitate towards smaller companies, startups, not necessarily people in the industry, medtech. So we spend a lot of time in really thinking, do we have the right people in the bus that are going to think in an agile, bold way? So that's on the P of people. On the processes, every single day we celebrate killing bureaucracy. What are the stupid rules that we have in the company? And it's amazing when you ask people, what are those stupid rules? They'll come up with a laundry list of them. And then we're sitting there at the executive committee asking ourselves, why do we have the rule? Why do we need 7 people to sign on this? Why are we doing this? What is the rationale behind that? And it typically is, well, honestly, it's been around for 15 years. Somebody came up with that idea. So let's kill it right there. So one example of process. The other example of process is innovation. We celebrate failing fast. We don't fire people at Zimmer Biomet for coming up with wrong ideas. Somebody came up with an idea, went through the process, didn't work out, hey, we're wrong. We do fire people when they come up with bad processes, but we celebrate failing fast. And then the partnerships and the products. We partner with agile innovators. We partner with the external ecosystem. We have a partnership with Plug and Play, the largest technology incubator in the world, I believe it is. We partner with tiny companies that know how to do agility and being bold. Because if you let the larger companies be in charge of all the innovation, the pace is not going to be the same. So I would say it's the mindset number 1, and then the people that you hire, the processes that you follow, and then the partnerships and the products within the ecosystem.
Yeah, Cummins, I'd say it really comes down to 2 key things. One, the continuous investment we make in our workforce and our people and advancing the capability of our people. And then this drive to innovate and disrupt what we did yesterday and do something better and different tomorrow. We've had a long time of belief of how do we deliver more value for the customer and embracing the need in our industry to reduce the environmental impact of diesel engines as a way to innovate, deliver value to our customers, and grow our business. So when I came to work for Cummins in 2000, the engine that we sold then is a small fraction of the engines that we sell today. They're very different in terms of the capability that they provide, and the emissions has been reduced by more than 90% during that time. We've improved fuel efficiency for our customers by 25%. And then at the same time, we grew our business from $6.6 billion in 2000 to $34 billion last year. So it's really not being afraid of change. And I think frequently the opportunities to innovate and to grow come at the places where there's a challenge, and really empowering your employees to solve those challenges.
If the question is, how do you provide entrepreneurial to the next generations? I think the thing that my wife and I, Glenda, are most proud of is the fact that we really wanted to be able to see that, give them the opportunity, and you can teach best by example, so show them how you can do entrepreneurial things, how you can think ahead. If they see you with your feet up on the desk, that means I'm really working. That means I'm thinking at night, okay? I call it feet on the desk. I also like to just go outside and think and look at the buildings that we have and so forth, and just where is the next one going to go? And how does it fit in? And with that, we wanted to have a family that could go on, a business that could go on being family owned for generations past 3 or 4 or maybe even 5. Most of the time, the future children do not want to become entrepreneurial because, well, there's some money there and they think they can get it. In our case, you don't really have a right to, by name being Beck. And if you want to come back to the company, you must go somewhere else and have 2 jobs. One could be an internship, and one has to be a real job where you could get fired. Because only then will you learn that there is a worse boss than your dad or your grandpa. And my children had to do that. All of my 13 grandchildren have to do it if they want to come back. 4 of them have been old enough to go to finish college and be back in the company. It's tough to send them away, particularly in COVID when there were no jobs. But you got to go find your job. And so those experiences have been really good for them coming back into the company. And the way that we have found to actually preserve the big amounts of the company, because it takes a lot of land, are that we put some of these things into dynasty trusts. Okay? So that's there forever. Okay? So they can come into the company, and the company can borrow from that, and they can use that money, develop their own systems, develop their own kind of little capital within the company, because you can own stock. But when you leave the company, you will sell your stock to another member of the company that already owns part of the company. Then you take your money and go help your kids, your grandkids. But the basis for the company has a real opportunity to be able to stay here for generation after generation after generation. And if they don't want to be in the company, then my wife and I will help you do something else. Because honestly, we probably do not need a full-time piano player in a seed corn company, okay? So I'll help you get another job somewhere. So that's how we take care of the kids that don't want to be in the company. They have 3 children. They were prolific. They have 13 grandchildren. And so we have lots of people coming on. And of the 4 that are old enough to have been in college and back, or chose, yes, even if they chose not to go to college, but all 4 of these did, then they're all back in the company now and getting into their 30s and 25s and so forth years old, and now becoming part of the operation, part of the leadership. And we will also put them in different parts of the company so that they can see what they really believe, what they really like to work in for their life work. And some of them, want to be the leader. But fortunately, they understand that you have these traits and you have these traits over here. And an executive isn't the same traits as a person that wants to just manage a department. And so they actually have learned where they belong, and therefore then they'll work together. And that is a key to having kids back inside the company and get along. Because after all, everything is pretty well predicted in the Bible, and the prodigal son is a story. Someday it'll be a bad day at work, and your husband or your wife will come home and say, just get your part and let's get out of here. It happens all the time. We're bound to determine it won't, or at least we're going to do our job to not have it be that way. if you find what everybody's good at and put them there, then they all love to work together.
Very good. We got a little over 10 minutes left, and you've heard some dialogue here about a variety of subjects. I'd like to take these next 4 topics and keep the answers about 30 seconds apiece for all of us. And inevitably you get back to your community and or your workforce, most likely both. Highlight one thing that comes to mind that you'd like them to hear that you've done for either or. In my case, it would have been 17 years ago when we were finally really starting to grow, and the thing that was challenging me most was how to keep up with the cost of healthcare costs rising. So I sat in on that renewal meeting, and we were large enough to self-insure. It was a rowdy renewal meeting. It wasn't like the ones prior to where you just kind of perfunctorily say, okay, grin and bear it. In one meeting, we became the insurance company, and we completely turned it upside down. Proudest thing I've done in government or the real world. We built it upon wellness and prevention, created healthcare consumers out of all my employees, and we avoid expensive remediation. And in the last 17 years, we've got healthier employees, have not had a premium increase. When I ask the audience, raise your hand if you can say that, I never see a hand go up. So that's the one thing in my own company. Each of you in 30, 40 seconds highlight something particular for community or your workers.
Yes. If I have to pick one, it's what we call the Lilly Global Day of Service. So one day in September, we see thousands of Lilly employees across the globe, but 10,000 of Lilly employees here in Indiana that are just going out doing community services in nursing homes, daycare centers, gardening, whatever it might be. And I think it really connects us to all the different components of our home state. And all of the ones that we are trying to serve through our medicines as well. And simultaneously, our employees are raising funds for nonprofits and for state organizations that last year exceeded $10 million just here in Indiana. So that's the number one event.
30 seconds or less, and there's a long list of activities. We're very involved with philanthropy and giving back. But the one data point or example that I share, we at Zimmer Biomet do mission trips. We select different countries around the world. These are underserved populations. The list is long, probably a good 20, 30 countries at this point. And then a group of us will go there and spend a week with surgeons, employees, doing surgeries pro bono for free for the needed. In addition to donating the time and some money, we obviously donate the implants. We've been doing this for a good 25 years. And the number of patients that we have impacted is in the millions, not to mention the number of dollars that we have donated. And it's just a great reminder for our employees that we are in the business of doing good for others, regardless of what zip code you were born in.
That's great. Yeah, Cummins has a core philosophy that our communities will be better because we're there, and we do that from a strategic and a grassroots. So last year, more than 80% of our employees used 4 hours of company time to be involved in their communities, and that adds up. Strategically, the thing I think I'm most proud of and committed to continuing to advance here in the state is the work we do in education. And really partnering, whether it's pre-K, K-12, or even in the university system, to make education more accessible and to help create pathways. And we've got a focus right now on STEM, in particular, building on some past work we had in vocational education and really expanding that. I think there's a lot we can do here in the state of Indiana and around the world that's really exciting to help build a workforce for all of us for the future.
The one thing that we've identified about 19 years ago was how do we have a company that might have a chance to go on and on and on through generations? So sit down and let's write down what we are and what few things that we stand for. Come up with 4 pages and 19 items that we strive to be. It's like, no. Get it on one hand. And we might be able to be good at one hand. One thing. So that turns out to be innovative, you're cooperative, you have a passion for what you do. Find what people have a passion for, and then they'll all want to work at that. And so we believe that the culture of a company is what determines what they're going to be and whether they have a chance to go on. What is the culture? Our culture is helping others and specifically helping farmers. And we have a big research program that just helps farmers grow seed, no matter what kind they do not have to use our seed. It's published, 300 pages. Here's how you, farmer, can raise better corn, better soybeans. It's free, it's on the internet. And so that's our real mission. We sell seed to support that mission. And that can go on, we believe, and on. It's called the culture of your company. Make sure that when you hire people, we'd ask first what your culture is. There's lots of people can do a job. But we sit in the first interview and find out, are you really a person that likes to play on a team? You know, and understand there might be one scorer, but there's 3 people that contributed to the block that got you there. So it's culture.
Very good. So for our second last question, we've talked about our state of Indiana. We've talked about these great companies and how they've managed through their own culture, their own definition of entrepreneurship. This question will be, what national or global issue is the biggest challenge you see in front of us for entrepreneurship, running companies? I'll be brief because I just spent the last 6 years doing it. I was on the budget committee, and I look at a country that was founded on freedom, opportunity, taking risks, sticking your neck out. And to think that my biggest concern would be the fact that our national kind of enterprise is not smart enough to spend less than it takes in, and that we would ever hand over a legacy to our kids and grandkids, now measured at 37 trillion. You can see us wrestling with it out there. That's the thing that worries me most. I was a loud voice on it there for 6 years, and you can turn the TV on each night and see, how that argument's still going on. It'll affect credit markets, a lot of other things. That worries me most.
Near term, I would say that the biggest challenge is really to make sure that people in need of life-changing medicines can access them and afford them. So I think that's absolutely something we need to solve for. We can develop life-changing medicines, but if they don't end up in the hands of the people that need them, we have sub-optimized the impact we can have on humanity.
I'll be brief. Responsible AI. So needless to say, AI is changing everything from how you design a knee implant to the kind of people that you hire and how you foster a culture of innovation. We have to make sure that we do so in a responsible way so that we don't get more disadvantages than advantages.
Believe it or not, the CEO of a diesel company is going to say climate change and the need to decarbonize everything that we do, and that's certainly something that our strategy contemplates and we think a lot about, is how do you decarbonize, how do we make higher efficient diesel engines that can run on renewable fuels, thank you Indiana farmers, and electrification for certain applications, and do that in a way that also works for all of us today. So keeping a thriving economy today while protecting the planet for the future.
The key to solving most problems for us is learn to play the hand you're dealt. If you're playing cards, learn to play the hand that you're dealt for that day. And if you learn to do that and don't complain about what everything else is, try to fix it so it makes your hand better the next day. But be happy with doing the best with the hand that you're dealt for that day and make it profitable and good for your customers and your employees.
Very good. Final discussion point. What would each one of you advise to any aspiring entrepreneur? And for me, it would be get comfortable with risk. If you don't get comfortable with it, the longer you go down the trail, you'll find that you may not have done what you had hoped to do, could be in a broad band of mediocrity. You got to get comfortable with risk, make sure you don't bet the farm, keep your neck intact along the way, but you got to stick your neck out if you want to do things beyond the ordinary.
Well, I would say I realize the journey is hard at times, but when you get truly inspired, match it with actions immediately, lean in.
I'll throw two things in less than 30 seconds again. Number one, similar to the governor, fall in love with prudent risk-taking. And I'll take it to the next level, and it's on that wall behind you. Be bold. Aristotle, the great Aristotle, one of the great Greeks, said 2,500 years ago that the problem with mankind is not that we set high goals and we miss them, but rather that we set low goals and we achieve them. Be bold. Be the boldest version of yourself. I guarantee you in your deathbed, you're not going to regret having been ambitious or having tried to live a bold life. So that's number one. And number two, along the journey, seek this, learning opportunities, the power of networking. I try to contact the old-fashioned way, picking up the phone, 3 to 4 people every day to learn about something that I don't know about. So have that learning agility, have the desire to learn from others, network, 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 and network.
Yeah, I would say be curious and set ambitious goals. And when you do those things and really challenge yourself and are curious to learn and think about new ways, then great things can happen.
One of our pillars would be responsible risk-taking, okay? Many times my employees would think that's too much risk, but they hadn't studied what you as a leader need to study. There's risk-taking and there's responsible. Responsible risk-taking is looking at all the things that might happen and then determine whether you can fix those so that they don't happen. So be willing to take some risk that is responsible.
Well, very good. That comes to the end of our 45-minute discussion. Thank you all for being good listeners. Thanks to the panel.
Well, everybody, our huge thanks to a phenomenal panel, chaired expertly, if I may say so, sir, by Governor Braun himself. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Thank you. First class. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody, or depending on what time zone you're on, good morning or good evening. But from here in Indiana, it is good afternoon, and we hope it is a very good afternoon. If we haven't met yet, I'm Ollie Barrett, and it's an absolute honor to be one of your MCs for the next few days. When I see you all sitting here, I think, number one, haven't we got an amazing opportunity to connect with each other? And the second thing I think is you've done very well sitting down for over an hour. So if you'll bear with us, why don't you just be upstanding and just stretch those arms and legs and maybe say a very good afternoon to someone you're fairly sure you haven't met before and just say hello. Let's just say hello. Good. All right, everybody. Once we let the speed networking genie out the bottle, sometimes we can't get it back in, but have a seat. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. By the way, in the spirit of welcoming everybody wholeheartedly, which is what this plenary is all about, will you raise your hand and give me a yes if this is your first ever GEC? Say yes? Yes. Amazing. And how about if it is not your first rodeo? Say yes? Yes. Welcome back. Well, look, welcome to the family, everybody. Let's
tell you what we've got in store. We're going to all connect over a wonderful series of receptions over the next few days and get to find out more about each other's lives and work. We've got a little bit of music for you this afternoon live on stage, so we're looking forward to that. I'm going to be doing a bit of a whistle-stop tour around the world with 4 very special guests shortly up on this stage, and we've got so many of the countries of the world represented in the audience, I know. But first, time for a really interesting conversation. 2 leaders who don't just talk about systems change, they actually design it. First of all, I'm going to introduce you to a scholar, a real systems thinker, a huge advocate of inclusion and inclusive opportunity. So from the US State Department to the highest levels of university leadership, and now as the president and CEO of the Kaufman Foundation, so leading one of the world's most impactful philanthropic institutions into its next chapter. In conversation with her is a global architect of entrepreneurial ecosystems who needs little introduction. He's the founder and president of the Global Entrepreneurship Network and has spent decades building bridges between change makers like you. Please give a hugely warm welcome to the stage to Dr. D'Angela Burns-Wallace and Jonathan Ortmans.
Well, Dr. Burns-Wallace, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time.
Me as well.
I think it's no secret, especially to this audience, that we've been the chair people of the Ewing Marion Kaufman fan club for a long time. Not just because many of us have been the beneficiary of Mr. Kaufman's philanthropy, but I think mostly because the extraordinary example and leadership that has been set for so many people and the inspiration that's occurred. So I want to thank you so much for coming here, joining us, being a part of this, and of course for all you do. But let's talk about you for a little. You've been an entrepreneur, and I know you've been an educator, and I know that you've been a government official, so you've got a very nice sort of perspective on this. But what inspired you after all that to then say, well, I'm going to round that out and join the philanthropic world and build on, of course, the great legacy of Ewing Marion Kaufman and of course that commitment that's always been in the institution to sort of advancing sort of equitable economic mobility. So can you tell us a little about your story? What tempted you to join this world?
So for me, I think across my career, it feels very eclectic, right? So from federal government to state government to higher education and now philanthropy, the thread throughout has been being in service to community, being able to take apart issues, try to find solutions, and most importantly, to partner with individuals, with organizations, to be able for societal change. So whether it was government or higher education or now philanthropy, that thread has pulled all through my career. So to be able at this stage in my career to take the networks, the experiences, the lessons learned from federal and state government, from multiple higher ed institutions, both public and private, and to leverage that into a space where philanthropy, you tackle very similar issues, but you actually have resources that you can leverage differently than when you sit in public sector seats. But the beauty of it is that you continue to partner across the public and private sector to get the work done. So I'm able to use my network, I'm able to use my expertise, I'm able to use who I am and where I come from to inspire, to understand, and to connect in terms of the proximity for the work that we do. So every piece of my journey, I think, led me to this seat. And I am from Kansas City, and so I actually grew up, there's a Missouri-Kansas contingent. Yes. I grew up actually with Mr. Kaufman in my community, and I saw his passion for giving back. I saw his passion for giving individuals the opportunity to control their economic future. And so he's a little bit of the inspiration, but why I do the work.
Let's stick with that if we can for a minute. Mr. Kaufman, there's a lot of our audience that may not know Mr. Kaufman, but he's part of a tradition in the United States of people who, come from a poor background, work hard, build something, but is one of the most amazing things about this country. There's a sense of if you create wealth, there's very much a tendency to then give opportunity. Can you tell us something about Mr. Kaufman and maybe, how did he earn the hearts and minds of Kansas City? And we know he bought a baseball stadium, but tell us more about it.
So Mr. K actually started as an entrepreneur in pharmaceuticals, but his passion for what we do at the foundation started years before that. He got sick one year early on near middle school and was out of school for an extended period of time. And he read and read and read hundreds of books. And it inspired him and it challenged him to think about so many different worlds and opportunities that everybody doesn't have access to. As he began to build his wealth through pharmaceuticals, the one thing that Mr. K said was that he talks about that he started with a pharmaceutical company. He was so good at his job that he made more money than the president and CEO that year. And so they started taking some of his money and cutting his territory. And he asked why, and the president said, well, you can't do better than I can. And that's the day that Mr. K left and started his own pharmaceutical company. Every member of his team was called an associate because they didn't work for him, they worked with him. And every member of his team was a part owner in his pharmaceutical company. They say when Mr. K sold Marion Labs that he made millionaires across Kansas City, from those that worked in the lab, from the scientists, all the way down to those that took care of the facilities and the buildings. He truly believed that if you gave people opportunity, if you gave them education, the skills, and you removed the barriers for them to succeed, that anything was possible. And that was his journey, and that's what he inspired others to do with the dollars that he then created through the foundation.
And the story goes from there that obviously he created a foundation. Yeah. And let's make sure, again, for the international community, sometimes the concept of a private foundation in the United States is an alien one. Maybe you can tell us, a little bit more about, what is this unique freedom that foundations have, and why is this so important to America? As we know that you can give some of your wealth to create an institution that then makes grants to individuals. But what's different about a foundation to any other kind of institution?
So what I would say is that one of the things about particularly the private foundations, we have the ability, our donors, our founders, get to set the passion and the commitment to our foundation. So our foundation is committed to equitable economic mobility for all. So no matter what your background is or where you come from, that you can control your economic future. We do that through funding, through education, entrepreneurship, of course, and also workforce. For in that space of philanthropy, you can move differently than, say, government entities or other private entities, corporate entities. But most importantly, it is about social impact and social change. That you are positioned in such a way where you're leveraging those dollars, those resources, your platform for the social good, for the betterment of not only kind of you directly, but for that greater communal good. And that's the power of that private foundation. And honestly, it allows you sometimes to move between the lines and stand in the gaps when government can't, when other parts of public sector is not able to, and when corporate may not see that mission and commitment to do so in that greater good kind of way.
Well, maybe that's a message we can give to some of the entrepreneurs outside the United States. A good thing to do with your wealth is to create an institution that has that unique freedom, maybe a freedom away from the constraints of taxpayers or indeed customers, that can have that ability to move with freedom. So a little bit more, if I can. You talked about. I'd like to talk a little bit more about this concept of equitable economic mobility, because tell us more about what it takes and some of the common misconceptions about what we mean by that, because it's fundamental and it's one of the unique things that I think the foundation can do that sometimes governments and companies struggle with trying to do in a genuine and sincere way.
So when we think particularly about equitable economic mobility and through the lens of entrepreneurship in particular, it's really important that we expand kind of the ideas of those things of what does that look like and what do those barriers look like. We always will hear and start with the access to capital is one of the key and critical things that is a barrier. And so when you think about removing systemic barriers so that entrepreneurs, so that individuals can actually have access and can reach their highest potential, you start with always that idea of that access to capital. But we challenge to say it's not just about the financial capital, it's about knowledge capital, it's about social capital, it's about human capital. When we think about creating access to capital, all those forms of capital really can make a difference when we think about how an entrepreneur grows, thrives, and becomes sustainable. So challenging ourselves to that misconception that access to capital only sits in the financial, without the human, the social, and that knowledge capital, they cannot thrive. But also we think about a lot of times, I think in that space of that economic mobility, that it's an individual driver. But it really is greater than the individual. When we really see individuals thrive in an economic way where they are growing, you also are seeing communities thrive. So what are those conditions when we are able to cluster entrepreneurs and small businesses that have an impact on building not just their individual wealth, but wealth for their families, generational wealth? We heard some of the panelists talk about that. But also community wealth. When a community understands and can invest in the conditions that help build wealth and assets for that community, though that ecosystem for those entrepreneurs thrive and they feed into that. So also thinking about or battling against the misperception that this is just an individual movement. It is a collective and it has effect in both directions. And then lastly, I would just say one of the things about, we do say equitable economic mobility. The equitable part is really important because we must understand that what is needed and which systemic barriers are not the same across all individuals, across all entrepreneurs. We know that women and entrepreneurs of color are accessing capital at a much lower rate, that the sustainability in certain pockets is lower than others. If we understand that as we work to solution, as we work to support across the ecosystem, it cannot be a singular way. It can't be, as you all were talking about, building curriculum that is adaptable, that is agile, that meets individuals where they are. We must understand and know who our entrepreneurs are and look at them in different ways to ensure that we're building resources and support to match on their experiences and their barriers. When we cookie cutter, when we look and say one thing, one solution serves all, that is when we aren't reaching that equitable part of the equitable economic mobility.
Can you give me an example of a couple of the other barriers we face? I mean, obviously, we all work from a perspective that, we have, in the United States, a whole range of communities where there's extraordinary talent, but there's not a lot of opportunity. And we also understand, quite frankly, as an economist, I would say the first thing we learned was, an economy suffers when you leave anybody out of it, okay? Exactly. So, whatever is your perspective on life as to, why you're doing this, what are some of the other barriers you think that, ultimately, sort of we as leaders or institutions like yours can work at trying to remove?
Right. So I'll go back to that idea around the capital and starting with financial. We know that there are a lot of different, there's actually a lot of good work that is happening out there in terms of trying to create and open up access to capital. But when we think about the knowledge space, right? That idea of as entrepreneurs move through different spaces and phases from that startup to moving to profitability and sustainability, we are seeing that while in many many of our ecosystems, there is a concentration at those earlier stages of the startup, because that's the exciting point. That's that new energy. But then we are finding, as they move through, our entrepreneurs don't have the same level of information, resource, and access as they start to think about moving from that startup to the more profitability or sustainability phases, right? Thinking about what those phases look like and what does that knowledge look like. Also, what we do know, and we have actually partnered and funded into a number of local, regional, and state level initiatives across the country, because we also know that our systems, our local systems, our state systems, even our federal system, creates barriers for occupational licensing, for many different things in terms of hoops, and many of these in which it'll take 5 or 10 steps for an entrepreneur to either start up, move, or sell, and actually working with our policy makers so that they understand and can map what are all the hoops that you are making entrepreneurs and small businesses move through, and how many are there, and where can we remove some of those. And so putting the onus also on the systems, those that are creating the systems. And so coming at it for different angles to be able to say, you're creating barriers that you don't need, and that there are other ways to capture that information, or to be able to make sure that certain standards are met without basically creating roadblocks for our entrepreneurs. So it's things like that. It's like they're not big boulders, but what happens is over time, this small piece and this small piece and this small piece basically builds a wall. And so it's about chipping away at those smaller pieces to be able to open up that access.
In terms of doing that chipping away, can you give us an example of any kind of initiative that you particularly, a favorite of yours, or that you think has really been effective?
There's so many. There's a number of colleagues out in the audience that I know that we have worked with. We are doing some work with some communities that are really focused on the small business clustering, right? And how in that community they are working together to understand how the cluster of the entrepreneurs and businesses are changing the ecosystem, but also changing the economy in a more sustainable way. But also we are pushing into new and different places. There are a number of you out there that may be familiar with our fast track curriculum and our 1 million cups communities, particularly here in the US, where entrepreneurs are coming together, they're learning, they're growing, they're listening to each other. In those spaces, trying to say, how do we take the things that we know work and how do we put them in new places and give people new access to it? We just started launched our first fast track community, a learning platform with the curriculum for startups in a correctional facility here in the US. And so a population of individuals who are very smart and entrepreneurial, because that's how some of them landed in that space, and then encouraging them and giving them their tools as they are working towards their own recidivism to be able to say, you can then run that business, and here are the tools to be able to do so as you come back into the economies. And then also just pushing ourselves to be in communities in which we are matching, again, where people are. So we're seeing, particularly here in the US, where we're not always as receptive to different languages, but we know our entrepreneurs come from many different backgrounds. And so for us, for our 1 million cups communities, we are launching into spaces in which we are using Spanish language and launching full 1 million cups community that is dedicated, that'll be in Spanish. But we are challenging ourselves to say, and others that we are funding into, to say, if we are preparing materials, if we are creating opportunities for entrepreneurs to come together, if we are strengthening our ecosystems, are we being inclusive enough to make sure that those resources within the ecosystems actually bring the language and the cultural competencies to match on the communities for which they are serving? Yeah. That's where we are seeing some of the greatest success. Again, meeting our entrepreneurs where they are and matching on directly to their needs without trying to say, here's the 5-point plan and this is what every entrepreneur needs, but actually breaking it down into smaller bits. That community level is a key component of the success that we're seeing around the country.
It's very exciting. It's such a positive way to actually, it's such a much more intelligent way to look at how you have an overall impact. Because if you're not taking those ideas to the community in a way that they can understand them, you shouldn't be surprised if you're not having success. Let's, if I can, just, a last thought here. I'm an optimist. I think we're all optimists who spend our time around entrepreneurs because they build and create. I just sort of want to say, sort of looking ahead, what gives you the most hope? What makes you an optimistic when you look at entrepreneurship in America? I mean, we spend a lot of our time trying to tackle barriers and to deal with problems and face a lot of sort of negative commentary. But what gives you hope for the future? Why are you excited about that? It's an awesome role that you're having to play. So what's exciting about it?
So it was actually something that you said that really made me smile today. And so you said that entrepreneurs are the new diplomats. And as a former diplomat, that's how I started my career. I was like, yes, because entrepreneurs have the ability to move cross-sector, cross-community. They speak the same language. Look at this room. Look at all of the work that has happened around the country, around the world with entrepreneurs. They have the same issues, challenges, but also the same triumphs. And so the future for me, I believe, in the work that we do and the work that we see happening is so bright because the entrepreneurial community has, I think, a new spark that they see and understand that in this moment that they really can make the difference for our countries, for our world, and the connectivity that we don't have boundaries or barriers like we did 10, 15, 20 years ago, and that the connection between our entrepreneurs, the work that they do, the ecosystems that they are building themselves, because none of them can do it alone, is actually the piece that is, I think, the most exciting. If we can leverage into and amplify our entrepreneurs as part of our kind of the way to move forward in our future, the innovation, the passion, the risk taking, the willingness to fail, but most importantly, as Mr. Craig always said, you can fail as many times as you need to, but you must learn from it, and that learning is actually, which is what will help you to succeed. We have to have an entrepreneurial mindset as we go forward, not only in this country, but around the world. And our entrepreneurs truly can kind of set that vision for us.
Well, that's very, very exciting. And I think the path ahead for entrepreneurs is always challenging, but it's also one that has great rewards. Well, I really want to thank you for joining us here today. I especially want to, in front of what is, quite frankly, been hundreds of people that as a result of Mr. Kaufman's leadership and example and support, I want to just make everyone aware, Global Entrepreneurship Week was actually conceived of by the Kaufman Foundation, at the Kaufman Foundation. It's where it was born. And we have nearly 200 countries that now have an institution that takes this dream forward. And it's a dream that's embedded in what you were optimistic about, that at the end of the day, we can do more together than we do divided. And so I want to remind everybody this year, Global Entrepreneurship Week is November 17th to the 23rd. It's always that week before Thanksgiving for the Americans. And once again, we will have it across the United States in every 50 states, but also in 150 countries. But as we like to say, 10 million people coming together all in 1 week. But I'd like to publicly have the chance to thank the Kaufman Foundation for its leadership in sparking that movement, and to most importantly thank you for all that you're doing. I think all of us are challenged by the vision that you're taking this with, and let us all remember that I think the challenge ahead for all of us is to make sure that this opportunity that entrepreneurs bring is available to everybody, no matter where you're from, what your background is, and that as I've often learned from the Kaufman Foundation, that entrepreneurship is not about spreadsheets and profits and marketing. It's about the possibility of human endeavor. It's about giving people dignity. It's about allowing people, as Mr. Kaufman often reminded us in his writings, to kind of be in control of their own lives, to feel a sense of pride that I can do this myself. And the possibility of human endeavor, but not just for yourself, but the possibility for your community as you've ended, and for everybody else. So thank you very much indeed, Dr. Burns-Wallace, for joining us.
Thank you.
I know all of us look forward to meeting you. Thank you.
Jonathan Ortmans and Dr. D'Angela Burns-Wallace. Let's hear it one more time for a brilliant conversation. Well, we continue our global theme as I welcome out 4 very special guests onto the stage, and we're going to go on a bit of a whistle stop around the world. Welcome, friends. Please have a seat, everybody. Let me tell you who's here for a fairly snappy global check-in this afternoon. It's very good to see everybody. Next to me, and I'll give you the 2 lenses that they're seeing the world through. One is regional and one is their specialty as well. Mr. Syed Momen is the additional managing director at BRAC Bank out of Bangladesh. Very good to see you, sir. Thank you very much for being with us. Next to you, Ms. Erica Gutierrez is the chief exec and founder of Lateral from Peru. Latam in the house, our founder, shining bright. So thank you for being with us. We'll hear more about it in a second. An ecosystem builder to his boots. Our next guest is Dr. Antonio Diaz-Martin, who is the Executive Director of Startup Portugal. Welcome to you, Antonio. Very nice to see you. And we have Mr. Temitola Adekunle Johnson, who has a very important role as Special Advisor to the President on job creation and small and medium-sized enterprises, and that's with the federal government of Nigeria. Let's give them all a huge GEC welcome. Thank you for being with us. I just wonder, firstly, I'm going to give very deliberate preference to our entrepreneur. Tell us a little more about Lateral, your inspiring creativity. Tell us a little bit more. We love a good plug.
Oh, thank you. I think it's better with an example. If we have a child around 5 years old and he has a question, it's probably a simple question, is going to answer more than 100 answers. And an adult, for example, in front of the same question, is going to have more or less 13. This gap is because on time we are like sleeping our creativity. And Lateral want to wake up this creativity on time. This is the purpose.
Loving that. I don't want to hear what happens to a child in their late 40s, but maybe you tell me a little bit later. So why don't we go sort of slightly snappily, and you can play along with this at home. What would your answer to my first question be? And this is a little bit unscripted, so let's see where we get to with it. Temitola, I'll start with you. A bold idea from your region that the world might not be ready for, but it probably should be. Where do we go? Temitola.
So I would say it's the MSME clinics. So that's the micro, small, and medium enterprise clinics. Now, it's a scheme where the vice president of the country goes to a few states as directed by the president, with the minister and some of the regulatory agencies to ask these startup businesses what their issues are. Could it be issues of regulatory issues, access to financing, and all whatnot? And some of these issues are resolved right there on the spot.
And they're hearing it firsthand. No
this
barrier.
has been ongoing since 2017, and it's still ongoing.
Love that. First class, thank you. So this is clinics, but with the Vice President themselves in the hot seat. Love that. So where will you take us? A bold idea that we can cross-pollinate here at the GEC.
I would say, like in an environment like Bangladesh, if we can provide an enabling environment for the entrepreneurs to get access to all sort of capitals. Finance is one of those.
Yes.
So in 10 minutes.
Oh, you left the punchline, didn't you? In 10 minutes. How close are you to that right now in Bangladesh with BRAC Bank?
Right now, we have been a disruptor in the market all the time. When our founder first established a bank to provide finances to the cottage and micro SMEs, everyone laughed at us. Like, what is this bank doing? This is going to go in vain. And now we are the largest bank in the country and maintaining an NPA of say less than 2%.
Amazing. 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Erica, that sounds pretty good to me. What idea from Latin America do you think the world should be adopting but might not be ready for?
Well, we can put something like this. We're very good to uncertain like ecosystem and crisis. And we transform that in opportunities and unpredictable solutions. So we are very good to reinvent us and to reinvent all the things.
Yeah, love that thought of reinvention, so powerful, right. Antonio, where will you take us? I'm asking us to speak for whole continents here, but get us thinking.
Well, from Europe, imagine the possibility of having one legal frame, one corporate legal frame that allows in the continent same rules to create new companies, to develop them, to receive investment, even for insolvency. We are creating that in Europe. The Europe strategy for startups and scale-ups was presented last week from the European Commission, and it's called 28th Regime. So imagine that we can do this globally and across the world. The rules could be the same in terms of legal, corporate regulation for startups to really go global in a most easier way.
Love that vision.
Yeah.
And who else will you need as partners on that journey? Is there anyone else you need at the table that you're sort of putting it out there?
We need the will of politicians and executive power and legislators from all over the world. In Europe, we have to have 27 countries agreeing with this, and we are on the way to have
all
that.
Right. Well, as a Brit, you're giving me FOMO now, so we probably should move on, but hopefully you'll invite us. Now, Erica, if you think about your peers across the region, I mean, based in Peru, but across Latin America, is there a shift in terms of how they're running their businesses, how they're behaving, that you would say to the world, you should tune into this shift?
Well, I like to do a metaphor because I'm Peruvian. I like to speak about food. So I like you to imagine a soup, a super good soup. And I would to put some ingredients in Latin American issues. The first one, I think we are better in this soup, they are going to shift the curve, is ancestral history we have. And we have something that is very inspirational for many people. We have tradition, spirituality, family, long-term relationships, and with good idea. This soup, why now is different than before? Because we have many resources, biodiversity, a lot of things, but we always have the same things.
Yes.
What could be different is because right now we have the mentality. We really, really think that we can be successful. So this soup is going to be better, and we are going to move the ship better.
I love that ingredient, and I'm putting you on the spot. Is there an ingredient there within that ancestral history that you've seen an entrepreneur use and put into the mix today? Because it's so easy to always gaze at the future. But what does that look like?
Yes, this spark of ideas that we could do simple things, simple things like what we use, like what we eat, but we could do it something with really different way. The way that we do is the way that only each one could do it. And I think this is Latin America culture right now.
Yeah, love that. I also love the fact that the original word for a company comes from, with bread, doesn't it, in the Latin? Yes. So that idea of sitting around the table together. Said, let's talk a little bit more about opening up access, sort of leveling the playing field. Just give us a sense of, or maybe pick on an example of a bold innovation that's coming out of the region at the moment, out of Asia, that we should tune into.
So the 10-minute thing, I'll come back to that. So right now, if you see the landscape has changed over last 10 years. So now we are seeing entrepreneurs doing business a lot online. This is a big shift that happened in our country over the last 10 years. So now, what gives that access to a lot of digital footprints? So the 10 minutes that I mentioned is because we can utilize those footprints using AI, get access to that credit in 10 minutes. We can do that now in 2025.
And draw on data sets that might not otherwise have been available.
Absolutely. So I think that is something we need to do going forward, and that will make the change, make the difference.
So on that, I mean, all sectors have a role to play, right? So Temitola, let's link that, if you like, with policy. Something that you feel that you're proud of seeing, and obviously we go straight to Nigeria, but feel free to expand that. A policy that you're getting right, that you're proud to share, but also anything that you're almost, give us a trailer about what's coming, if you like. What have you done well?
Okay, so right now the president is shifting policy from dependence on the public sector. Moving it, so the orientation right now in Nigeria is that when you finish from the university, you're as good, you can get a job doing your own thing, you can do a startup. So Nigeria is a nation of 240 million people. That's about 3% of the world, if the world's population is about 8.1 billion. And if Africa's population is about 1.15 billion, that should be about 16.2% of Africa. There is nowhere in the world the public sector is going to provide employment or employment opportunity for everyone that comes out of the university. So the shift right now is that, listen guys, you must begin to move from dependency on public sector to private sector. You must begin to start. We're encouraging startups in Nigeria.
Yeah, so this is also part of a mindset shift as well, isn't it? Is there a policy lever within that you're throwing into action? What would that be?
The current government is being very deliberate. So for every shift in policy, they are trying to enshrine it in the policy of the country. For instance, we have agencies like the Industrial Training Fund, ITF, which now goes around the country training small businesses from 100 level, 200 level, 300 level university students. There's a TVET, making sure that you are well educated, preparing you for the world to come.
And just while we're briefly on policy, thank you, Timothy. Is there any, I'm on the spot here, but is there any policy within your parts of the world that the other three of you would love to see changed? If we're thinking about unlocking, Saad, you're nodding, where would you go?
Actually, I liked something which the founder of Jen said this morning, or at the beginning, that the policymaker shouldn't be a policymaker, there should be the pathfinders. And then there have to be a collaboration between the ones who are doing and then devise the policy. So that disconnect is there everywhere, so that we have to get out of that disconnect. So
get out of the way sometimes. I mean, it is hard, isn't it? Because, Erica, when we're dealing with children and young people, we need safeguarding, we need regulation, but one person's regulation is another person's red tape. Anything you'd get rid of? What would you dispense with? For lateral, Erica, and I'll come to you, Antonio.
First me.
Yeah.
Yes, for us, the regulation that I hope could be changed on time, it's better, is related to access to capital. Because startups at the beginning, these 10 minutes I have keeping here.
It's hard to forget that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not easy to forget. Access to capital is very important, mainly for startups that are based on research. Because on research you have to take some years and you don't have income. So the regulation, the environment related to this ecosystem have to support better in Latin America this kind of startups. So could be.
Right, and it makes you think about all of the different funders of innovation from that very early stage. I mean, Antonio, on that, but also more broadly, when we think about ecosystems, because you're in the business of fostering ecosystems of very different types of player, is there, how would I say, almost like a belief about ecosystems that we need to move on from? Almost whether it's a misconception or just something that frankly, it's 2025, is a little outdated. How have you seen it?
Well, let me double down on what Erica just told us. And I would point out two misconceptions that we still have and that we need to change urgently. The first one is that startups are too risky for getting credit from banks. This has to end. Why don't commercial banks support startups? We have artificial intelligence, we know better, we know how to analyze, to predict. We know that startups have a certain rate of failure, but also the ones that win are amazing companies that can change the world. So why don't banks support startups? And the second one, and this applies to my region, I think in North America we are much better in that field, so it applies to Europe and other continents, maybe not to North America, that it's the misassumption that startups are too risky for big institutional investors to invest capital in. So big pension funds, big family offices, big LPs should also invest in venture capital funds, should also invest in startups in order to have a very diversified portfolio of companies, and shouldn't let these type of companies out of their investments.
Right. Thank you, Antonio. So, but just briefly on that first point, with BRAC in Bangladesh, to what extent, just help us clarify, to what extent are you funding startups?
Actually, in Bangladesh, startups are just blooming at the moment. So from bank side, it's still a bit difficult because we handle with depositors' money. So we look at risks at a much broader lens than the venture capitalists, for example. So, but we do finance startups because we have a big support from the government. Because that's kind of a credit guarantee which is coming for financing startups.
But that is a creative partnership in itself that we can learn from. Really helpful, thank you. And can I get a bit more personal with a question, Erica, which is, you know, there's so much turbulence. Jonathan Ortmans has been talking about it with D'Angelo today, right? So how do you, as a founder, keep the vision alive amidst all of this turbulence around? How do you do that? Because you are very calm, you're very fixed on a very inspiring goal. How?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to do something that is not perhaps permitted, but one point I left in the other question, and I say capital, and the second one, capabilities, skills. Because we could have capital, but we are struggle in the growth when we don't have this team. But now I'm going to the question right away.
So how do you do it, and how do you keep that clarity?
Yes, first, it's my experience, it's not an advice, but I think that the first is to have a purpose, because when you are going to struggle for many problems, if you only do the things for money or to return something, you are going to keep out at the first, because you are going to, for many people, say or receive many no's, and you have to answer why not. So only with purpose is, for me, something that could be valuable. The second, the team. The team commitment team, because you cannot do anything alone. It's impossible. The third one that is very crucial, you have to balance long-term and short-term, because the transactional is something that is very good on the moment, but perhaps you are killing your startup in the future. So it's very difficult for us to play the day, okay, because we're living the day, but we have to thinking on the future, and this balance is very difficult.
Very hard to balance. Remember Eisenhower saying, what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important.
Yes.
You're treading a tightrope. Antonio, just very briefly, I'm going to come back to Temitola in a minute, but very briefly, on your two things on the wish list of redesigning, particularly capital from banks into startups and then into institutional funding, any spotlight you'd shine of who's doing that well across the region, and in Europe, I mean? Anyone, in terms of points of light?
Sorry.
So organizations that inspire you because either they are as banks funding startups or they are unlocking institutional investment, because those were your two big things that need correcting.
Yeah, well, I think in Europe there are some public-private organizations that make partnerships. I think partnerships is the right way to address this and try to, see startups not as an immediate return, but as let's say, a goal in the long term. And if we make big corporations, banks, and using obviously some type of benefit or warranty that can come from public money or from the state, in order to get public-private together and make traditional companies, banks for instance, other companies, to invest and to give capital to startups as a long-term bet, I think we are on the right track.
Yeah, that is exactly the track. Okay, so Temitola, thinking more broadly about your role advising the president, you're in the business of job creation as well. So this is jobs of the future. So if we think about systems, is there any system or part of the system that you think we almost need to dismantle if we're going to make way for that future?
Like I said earlier on, I think the system that might need to be dismantled is the system of over-dependency on the public sector. There are hundreds of thousands of university students that graduate every year seeking jobs.
Yes.
No government in the world can take those graduates. No government in the world can employ the number of university students that graduate. So every country must begin to think startup, startup, startup. For instance, what we've done as a country, like the theme of this event says, the bold change the world. We've partnered with San Francisco to open a startup house with the intention to raise $5 billion. And the $5 billion is earmarked to support Nigerian startups.
Loving that. Can we come?
Oh yeah, everyone is welcome.
I'm tempted to ask, we've only got a couple of minutes left, if you swapped jobs, Temitola, with your boss, the president, for the day, what would you put into action?
A sustainable startup fund.
Really interesting. I want much longer to talk to you about that, actually, but what would we say to our guests here, and it is a global audience, if we were to make a commitment over the next few days, what do you think that commitment should be in terms of supporting entrepreneurial ecosystems? We're going to go really quickly down the line. Syed, what do you think we should be committing to?
I think from Bangladesh's point of view, the first commitment is to enable the entrepreneurs across the country, not focused on the cities, and to break the social barrier, create an enabling environment so that they can come up and become an entrepreneur.
So access across the country.
Yeah, across the country.
And socially as well, so that social mobility point.
Yes.
Erica.
Well, I think that is very committed to, it's something rare, but it's bold. Generosity. As a startup, we cannot control everything.
No.
But we want to be in control of everything. So the form that you get that is to do for other that you want to get it for you.
Love that.
When you do that, it's very bold, you are going to receive the same.
Love that. It's a good entrepreneurial mantra, isn't it? You know, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Yeah, but that generosity of spirit, I think, resonates very well with us as a Gen family. So thank you. Antonio, and then briefly, Timothy.
Well, I would advocate for community and globalization. I think if we all committed ourselves in our jobs to create a world where mobility, where immigration, where free commerce is cherished, is supported, is promoted, then we will be able to have truly global startups, to have truly global communities, and we will be doing a great job to help entrepreneurship globally.
And for many, that will be a very refreshing message indeed. Thank you, Antonio. Timothy, very briefly, if you would.
Yeah, it's just to say the world over must take bigger risk with startups. It's called a risk because you are not sure what the result will be. You must take risk with startups.
Yeah. And that idea that risk itself is not in itself something to be avoided. It's just something to be more clearly understood. No risk, no reward. And we will be tuning into Lateral and its progress a little bit later on today. So we have hundreds of answers, and you've given us brilliant answers today. So to each and every one of you, thank you very much indeed for superb guests. Thank you. And I'm going to invite all four guests, Syed, Erica, Antonio, and Timothy, to leave the stage to your renewed round of applause. Thank you very much again. Thank you. Well, we are reaching the end of day one here at the GEC, but a couple of thoughts. Firstly, thank you to those of you who have already started connecting on the GEC app. It is your trusted guide. It is a who's who of who's here. It's also your most reliable guide for what's on when, so you can see that, and lots of messaging going on through that as well. So do tune in to the app. You'll have seen around that huge, wonderful circle of lights outside the Gen Village, already a hubbub of conversation, and scene of our refreshment drinks reception, which will follow very shortly. So please do make your way out there. And in that spirit of sharing as we go, thank you to those of you who have been sharing on very different platforms already, whether that's LinkedIn or whatever your platform of choice, because that generosity of spirit, to Erica's point, is helping draw new people into this Gen global community and family. So we're very grateful to that. Now, because it is a global gathering, let us return to a thought and a force which does bring people together, and that is the force of music. It's a great honor to welcome someone to the stage who is very much in the business of bringing different ingredients together. So this is a very special guest performance indeed, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing what I know will be a feast for us all. So please give a huge Gen welcome to the stage to an exceptional artist. Please welcome Vinci.
I'm Vinci. I'd love you all to stand up and just enjoy yourselves. This track is called We Are Here, and it's about flying because it's our time to fly. You know we are from the stars. That's right. And we traveled oh so far. It's time we open up our eyes as we look up to the sky. 'Cause you know that we're not alone. song I'm going to sing for you is called Save Our Humanity. And it's because we are all one human family aboard Spaceship Earth. And it's time we start treating our Earth like a spaceship and realizing how a miracle we are as a human species and human life, and also our planet. So this is my next and final song for you.
Find peace in your heart. Look to the stars. You'll find the truth. And don't think you're alone. You're standing there. You're only home. And I want something more. I've been here before, but the world ignores. But I gotta find peace of mind. Let it take me to that place, and I will never fall. And I am on that heavenly frequency. And when the world comes crashing down, we save We're trying to see the light. Take shelter in my arms. No, I will never let you down. No, I will never let you down. But I gotta find peace of mind. Let it take me to that place, and I will never fall. And I'm on that heavenly frequency. And when the world comes crashing down, we save
Thank you for all being here. I hope this music inspires you and wakes you up. Thank you. Have a good Jack.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Vinci, that was absolutely stunning. An aurora of creativity there, absolutely first class. Honoured guests, please do join us for our Gen Village reception. I can't wait to meet more of you face to face. Let's get connecting. And why don't we have another final round of applause for every speaker, and especially Aurora there, and especially Vinci there. Fabulous, thank you. See you tomorrow morning, thank you.